And inside this convex polygon, I'm looking for, say, in the question it is the rightmost point, the right, but in general, it might be optimization of various things. Maybe I have a direction of a line and I want to know what is the most extreme point from this direction. Maybe I have a point outside the polygon and I want to know what's a tangent from each direction. Maybe I want to actually ask about closest point between two polygons, or if two polygons intersect, or various other things that are much easier to do once they are convex. So what I wanted to tell you is just to tell you where I'm usually getting confused with this type of question, and maybe it will help anybody. So the first observation, like the question asks you about finding the rightmost point, but the first observation is that if I just show you VI over here and just estimate its x coordinate, I have no clue if it's a rightmost or not. And if I just know about VI and VI plus 1, I still have no clue if it's a rightmost point or not, because it can just be in the lower part of the polygon. So I need 3 vertices at least to know which part I'm. So I'll start from cutting the polygon into place as suggested and decide if now the interesting polygon is in the first part or the second part. So far it's also stated in the question itself. What I want to suggest from here, it's not the only way to get out of it, but what I want to suggest is decide that from this moment you stick to one direction. Let's say counterclockwise, because we usually prefer counterclockwise, and at every moment you'll have your what your invariant in the polygon is that you have one point, one vertex S somewhere, S for start. At some point you'll have the other vertex T for target, and all you know is that the vertex you're after is between start and target counterclockwise. That is, forget completely at this point that it's actually sitting nicely inside an array. The array is waiting somewhere, but you have the start and then start counterclockwise all the way to the vertex target will actually contain the optimum. And if you think about it, it's actually prevent even the first stage that I started, because you can always start where it's the start and end is the same, but doesn't matter. Okay, and once you have the start and the target counterclockwise, always counterclockwise, you can say, if I know that what I'm looking for is in this portion of the polygon counterclockwise, now let's take mid. And what's special about mid? The number of vertices here, k prime, equals to the number of vertices here, k prime, between the start and target. And that's how you're doing your binary search, or imagining it here. Why do I make a big deal of it, and why do I suggest it as a source of confusion? Is that now look at the array A that contains all these vertices, and look at the vertex start and target are somewhere in the array, and it's possible that S comes before his smaller index, implying that the mid is somewhere here and it just behaves like normal binary search, just takes the average of start and target. Or it could be, and that might confuse some of you, or had confused some of you, that this is a situation that I'm going from the same thing. Yes, you're right. That I go with everything is still counterclockwise, but I walk from S forward counterclockwise, and at some point I'm going to the other direction, and that's absolutely fine. It's just a different case at which in the array T is smaller than S. And at this point, you want to apply the same principle. Look at all the count how many vertices you have so far. I'm doing it very elaborately. Count how many vertices you have so far. That is when you start from S all the way to T, circular way. And now pick K prime and walk forward K prime many vertices, which might take you to the beginning, might not, and so on. Okay, back to art gallery. So that's maybe living in peace with the circulation in the clockwise part.
Do you have a chance to talk about a separate question on the homework, number 4, or would that be after class?
If you want, shoot, what's the question? I'll tell you if I will do it.
This was describing the minimum distance, and it mentioned the distance was less than equal to 1. I'm trying to figure out what is 1. Is like the path length, or is the distance?
No. The distance to the nearest point.
Okay.
I thought that the text there is, at each moment I'm checking what the distance to the nearest point from all the sites, the nearest hospital, and my path should work so that I'm never more less than 1 from one of the hospitals, particularly the nearest one. The distance to each hospital is more than 1 at each moment along the path. And a word of warning, I heard a few people that said we will prove that somehow it's okay to walk only on the edges of the Voronoi diagram, and then we take the Voronoi diagram and run BFS or something. So that's wrong. I will let you wonder why, but if you're saying I take the Voronoi diagram, run BFS, and spits out the result, it's definitely wrong. Its full solution contains many other pieces that involves also the BFS and involves the Voronoi diagram. Okay, I'll remind you from this room, the higher quality if I'm streaming is on Twitch. It's much less compression, but it's also on D12 as normal. Okay, let's remind ourselves what was the diagonal on a polygon. Diagonally on a polygon, a segment that is fully inside the polygon, and connect two nearby, two vertices that, of course, see each other. But the other word is that they see each other because the whole segment between them is fully inside the polygon. And we wanted to show, or we have shown, that in every simple polygon there is always such a diagonal. And just to show you that is this not obvious? I know in convex polygon I can find many such diagonal, but in this polygon, similar but not identical to this example, you want to think a bit. Why do I have isn't every pair of vertices here will form a good diagonal? No, there are many segments that needs to cross a boundary. Yeah, I'll try not to use the lower part of the board. Okay, so we know that there is a diagonal, which means that we can even find it in linear time, which means that we can triangulate the polygon in n squared, find a partition into triangles. After the n square is not complicated. It's kind of variant of line sweep, just very twisted variant of line sweep. And after that, the n log n came after that. After that came an algorithm that ran in n log star n, which is a very, very small constant. And after the n log star n, a professor in Princeton named Bernard Chazelle was teaching this algorithm to his students in computational geometry, and the story tells that after 4 hours of lecture, the students were completely dead, but he had the first linear time algorithm, the first correct linear time algorithm for this problem. So that's one cute piece of folklore. Another cute piece of folklore was that it was not the first algorithm that find a polygon triangulation in linear time. It's a very fundamental problem. There is lots and lots of application. So people really care about finding a triangulation. You understand what triangulation in this case? And by the way, we have in this course two triangulation. We have triangulation of a polygon, and we'll have a triangulation of points or set of points. Don't confuse. Triangulation of a polygon is kind of like the triangulate set of points, except that all the chords, the segments that you're taking, must be inside the inner polygon. We'll get today, I think, to triangulating set of points. So the question of can I find the triangulation in linear time and is the number of edges of the polygon was open for many years, and people publish a linear time algorithm for it. Pretty complicated, and fewer people could really understand what's going on, but many people use this result for generating other algorithms, and many people use the results of the first people to generate new algorithms based on the other ones, and so on. And once it turned out that there is a bug, it was kind of a virus that spread out to many. But at least today there is perfectly good linear time algorithm that even have reasonable constants. Okay, so we know that every polygon can be triangulated, and I'll find inside n minus 2 many triangles, about n minus 1 many chords, and something like this. So from now on, every polygon is assumed to be triangulated. And now, where I wanted to convince you that in such a polygon, I can find an ear. What is an ear? An ear was a triangle where for every triangle in the triangulation, every chord is either a chord of the triangulation, it wasn't part of the original polygon, but I added it to make it triangles, or it's an edge of the original boundary of the polygon. An ear is a triangle of this triangulation that has two ears. Think about it. Two edges. Think why it must be two consecutive edges of the boundary of the polygon. You will not have two edges that are not consecutive. They must share an edge. Otherwise, it's quadrilateral. It's not triangle. And I want to convince you that every triangulation of a simple polygon has at least one such ear, actually two. And the requirement for simple comes because here is a polygon that is not simple, has a hole in the middle, and doesn't have an ear. Every triangle here has an edge either from the outside or edge from the inside, and the other two edges are triangulation edge. So it really needs this simplicity argument. Okay, and how did we do it? We don't have to, but elegantly, we used duality between a graph and the dual of the graph. I'll use the word dual several times in this course. Right? We'll see many algorithms that use duality between points and lines. The points and lines are, in a sense, preserve various properties when I replace between them. But there is also duality between planar graphs. I can start from a planar graph, a map, and what I'll do, you'll need it in the homework actually, what I'll do in this map, here is my map, maybe I have faces that are split between, maybe it's triangles, maybe I have a face that has plenty of edges, but what I'm going to, and this is a planar graph, embedding of a planar graph, it's a plane graph to be precise, and I'm going to make a new graph by place a vertex V1, V2, V3, V4, one per each face. And that's how I created the faces, and now I need to create the edges. How do I do it? Every two faces that shares a boundary between them, with common edge between them, I'll connect by an edge. Okay, and that's how I create a dual graph. So again, you'll show me one planar graph, one embedding, which means place, you have faces, edges, vertices, place, stick a nail, one per each face, and now two nails that the faces share an edge, connect them in an edge of this new graph that you're creating, the red edge. And that has lots of nice properties, like I can take the dual and take the dual of, and convince you that the dual is planar. Sorry, it was a good sentence. I can take a planar graph, creates its dual, and convince you that the dual is planar as well. If it's planar, then I can take its dual and I'll go back to the primary, for example. Where it will become also important is that I can take the Voronoi diagram, take its dual, and get, help? I didn't prove it, so it's either you've seen it before or not, or just taking a wild guess.
The Delanoy triangulation?
The Delanoy triangulation will be the dual of the Voronoi diagram, so I can generate the Delanoy from the Voronoi, and I said that the dual of the dual is a primal, so I can take the, what did we say? I can take the Delanoy triangulation, takes its dual and get back the Voronoi diagram. And there are algorithms that take advantage of each, whichever is easier. So what do I obtain from duality here? Notice I'm only connecting faces that are separated by a triangulation code. I don't place a vertex on the outer face, and the outer face is not connected to anybody. The boundary of the polygon is unpenetratable. And I want to convince you that this graph that I'm obtaining, because it's a simple polygon, this graph is a tree. It could be, like in the example over here, a path even, but even if it's not a path, it is it's connected, and B doesn't have cycles. Could it contain a cycle? It will contain a cycle over here, but it's not a simple polygon. Well, that will be a cycle. Every triangle connects to two. Okay, so I created this dual graph, and now pick a vertex that is a triangle inside this dual graph. Remember, all I'm trying to convince you is that there is an ear, a triangle that whose two edges are, the two out of its three edges are outer boundary edges. So I picked such a vertex, and what happened in a tree? I can move from this vertex to a neighboring vertex, which will be moved through an edge of through a Delanoy code, and you can do it again. Try to go backward, try to go away, try to go away, try to go away, and each moment, once you enter a triangle, if a triangle has two chords that are both triangulation chords, it means that I can enter into this triangle via one triangulation chord and leave the very same triangle via another triangulation chord. I never need to use the same code for both entry and exit. So as I'm doing this work, at each iteration, I'm discovering one new triangle. I never go back to where I started from, because that will mean a cycle. So at some point you run out of triangles, which means that there is a triangle that I was able to go into via an edge of the triangulation, but I cannot leave. Meaning that there is not, only have one edge of the one triangulation chord, so what happens to the other two edges? Must be from the boundary. Meaning that that's an ear. And you actually see that in this case at least, I have several ears.
What about a shape kind of look like a pizza, you know, kind of go around? So you go in circle, you never...
Yeah, it's not a simple polygon.
Oh, that is not considered simple paragon?
That's
It
not
doesn't
a
have a
simple
hole.
polygon. The moment that it has a hole, it stopped being a
Pizza
simple polygon.
doesn't really have a hole, it's just 12 slices that kind of go around in a circle. So you never have, you keep going and you never...
What makes a point is the center of the pizza. How come I'm connecting this diagonal to the center of the pizza?
I mean,
I
kind
can
of
do.
like a circle. It's
I mean,
like
it could be that.
12-sided
It's a good
polygon,
question.
really is. Yeah, exactly like that.
Yeah,
like a hexagon, yeah.
But how a segment from here must be connected to a segment here. I cannot stop the middle of the way. There is no piece of the boundary of the polygon. To make this a polygon with hole, I'll place a piece of the boundary right here in the middle.
But I don't have a hole if I'm just exactly 6 pieces, right?
That's right.
6
So I can still
triangles.
triangulate it, but this is a chord. Let's
Yeah.
fully triangulate it.
Oh, that's right. I don't triangulate like that.
And what's a dual of
Yeah.
this triangulation? I'll place one vertex in each one of these guys. And here is a dual. And what did I prove? That not only that I have an ear, but actually that there are 2 ears, right? You can go to one side or another side, but that's an example that I have exactly 2 ears. Which
I was thinking there is a vertex right in the center.
Then it's not simple. It must be a vertex of the boundary.
I see. Okay, thanks.
It's very good point. So here is one of the triangle that is an ear, 2 edges of the boundary, and the same goes for this triangle. That's the 2 extremes. Of course, if you show me the same polygon but different triangulation, then maybe the ears are different triangles. Okay, so in our theorem we always have an ear. There is always a triangle, or there is always a vertex. There is always a vertex of the polygon that in the triangulation has degree 2, and the only 2 edges it's connecting to are the edges of the boundary of the polygon. Think about this vertex versus this vertex that is connected to 2 edges of the boundary, just like this one. Again, this one, it is connected to 2 edges of the boundary of the polygon, but it also connected to 3 chords of the triangulation. So that's why this vertex is not good for me to base the ear on. Okay, and now we are moving to the ear chopping algorithm, which would say, yeah.
Is there a correlation between the number of ears a polygon has and maybe like the number of vertices or edges or chords?
So all I can prove is that the total number of triangles is absolutely correlated. We had a theorem from last time that said in a triangle in an n-gon, like polygon n-gon, there are always, no matter how I triangulate it, there are n minus 2 triangles. And let me think, and in for n minus 3 chords. Proof by an example. 4 gons, 2 triangles, and 1 chord. Okay, so now we are back to there is some interesting, I think that computer would appreciate being rebooted. I might have to. So, the vertices of a triangulated polygon could be colored using three colors. Every vertex will get color of red, blue, green, in a way that each and every triangle has one vertex from each color. That's a theorem that we want to prove. You can color the vertices. Each vertex will have a unique color, and this color, and every triangle will have one vertex from each one of the three colors. Here's my polygon. Here is my polygon. That's a number, all the vertices that it has, and I can create some way, triangulate, color its vertices. So every edge connecting two vertices of different colors, and obviously if it's triangles, then it has three edges, so it must be the whole three. So these are the colors 1, 2, 3. So I'm able to color a triangle, but which now, if I told you that the polygon that I started from had an ear, that's the ear, then it means that this polygon, the new one, V4, is connected to the previous three vertices only via two channels, only via two edges. Meaning that I can look at the color of this guy that V4 is connected to, saying, oh, I'm using 1 and 3, implying that I can use color 2 for the last guy, the one that I removed via an ear. And if the polygon that I started from has actually 5 vertices, then maybe there is another ear somewhere. Maybe here is V5. Look at it, only 2 vertices that matters for V5, they are color 2 and 3, so I can give it color 1, always a complement. So the overall algorithm will start with n equals 3. You can always color this polygon. If you have more than 3 vertices, then find an ear and remove, find an ear and remove, find an ear and remove. Keep a collection of all these ears, don't let them go anywhere, and remember the order by which you chopped them. And now you're done to one triangle. Color this triangle and now put the ear back. Every time that you are putting an ear, you can assign it a color, and you never create a conflict. You'll never create a triangle that has only 2 out of the 3 colors. Nice? Mm-hmm. See that it's very cool. So what did we prove via this theorem? That n over 3 guards are sufficient to guard the whole polygon. But why is this true? Because look at all the vertices after you color them. Look at the number of green plus the number of red plus number of blue vertices. Each vertex is uniquely colored, so these 3 numbers, the green, the red, and the blue, this is just n, meaning that either that the greens or the blue or the red, one of these 3 sets has at most n over 3 many guards, many vertices inside. But every triangle has a representative from all 3 colors, implying that if I placed a guard only at the red, I have a representative in every triangle. Triangle is a convex polygon, no matter where you put the guard. You see this triangle. And by the way, the same guard, the same red guard, might cover many other triangles, that's fine. The same goes if I'm putting on the green, the same goes if I'm putting on the red. So I have the choice to put to pick the color, and the color that I pick, of course, will be the ones that I have the fewest. Okay, next question. So we are done with proving Fitts theorem that you never need in a simple polygon more than n over 3. What should you do if the polygon has holes? It's not exactly as simple as I present it, but along the line of here is my polygon. It has a hole inside, so I cannot find or triangulate it. I can triangulate it. I need to show you how, because the whole mechanism was for simple polygon. So how can I make it a simple polygon? I'll draw a very narrow segment here, and draw a very narrow segment here. I'll exaggerate it a bit. How many faces this polygon has? It has one face outside, one face inside. Okay. And if you have a polygon with several holes, then you can always do such a trick. Remember, why did I need the two segments? Because now, what does it mean that the polygon is simple? I can start walking on its boundary. My left hand is always inside the polygon. I can walk over the boundary, and I'll get back to where I started eventually, and I covered the whole boundary. So I just simplified this polygon, and now I can find triangulation, and now I can even find a good guarding set. But there are a few technicalities. It's not exactly as simple as I'm saying, but if you do need a solution, that's definitely a very good solution of triangulating. And triangulating of polygons and points that is a big business with lots of money, robustly in higher dimensions. So yeah, there is definitely, it's far from being a solved problem. Yeah.
Is there anything stopping you from just drawing, say, on a non-simple polygon, drawing a singular chord and then calling it a member of the outside face, rather than having
formally it's like two edges that are infinitely close to each other. It just, so what you're getting is, in the math jargon, it's Jordan curve. It's a curve that nicely separates the inside from the outside. So Fitts theorem tells us you don't need more than n over 3. This example tells you that there are cases that you need no less than n over 3. We will see this example a few times in this course. It's a comb example, comb like, people that have hair might remember, yeah.
So you split that donut shape, split it, then the end, you added two vertices to the end, right? So n plus 2.
What? So the numbers needs to be massaged a
Okay,
bit.
thanks.
And the number of triangles stopped being n minus 3, the n minus 2, it depends on the number of holes. So everything needs to be a bit massaged.
Thanks.
Yeah. So the comp example here is a simple polygon, and I'll draw it such that to see this point, if I want somebody to see this point, the only way to see this point is to be somewhere inside this region. If I insist on being on the boundary, then the only point on the boundary that is it will be somewhere here below. Which means that if I'm standing here in order to see the top of the teeth, there is no way that I'll see the top of the teeth or the next tooth of the comb. Implying that I need yet another guard over here to see this tooth, and so on. So I need a separate guard for each one of the teeth. There is no guard that see two tops of the teeth at the same time. So how many teeth do I have? Let's count. there is, well, this one that I don't care about, we counted only once, and from this point, there are 3 edges, 3 edges, 3 edges, 3 edges, and for every such teeth of 3 edges, I need a separate guard. So that shows that the bound is tight. Okay. You can find in the Dutch textbooks, the MMM Chong, you can find a code for the n log n. I thought that we have already n square time algorithm, or even n cube was even simpler. Take a code, look at the segment connect, or take a code that is tagged to endpoints, try to connect them, try to ask either any other edge of the polygon that separates you from connecting them, and eventually you find what you need. So that this algorithm is a bit technical and doesn't introduce so many new ideas. We'll talk about other things. But we'll talk a lot about art gallery problem, because it's really, really, really important problem. But you are placing cellular antennas and you want to cover the area. You want to place sensors of different types, each one with unique capabilities of what is a visibility polygon. That is, when I place a sensor in this location, in this direction, probably it is directional camera, if it's a camera. It is a cone, it's not omnidirectional, probably. Probably there is some range constraints, and so on. So you are collecting all these constraints that tells you what every candidate guard can see. At the same time, you have a constraint about where can you place a sensor, maybe next to a fire point, maybe you need power, maybe there are other constraints. And now you want to place as few of them as possible. Another similar application, I'm placing charger stations for electric vehicles, and I want to cover every possible trajectory that is not too long. Similar flavor of set cover problem. And set cover algorithm can work quite well here. And I'm going to tell you what is set cover in this problem. So I want to find the minimum number of sensors, cameras, which are as expected NP hard. And but it's I just said that it's important problem, so maybe you are willing to invest more time to solve it. In 2D, you can get away mostly with integer linear programming that we'll talk about in this course. Not exactly computational geometry, but close enough. So I'll make a little twist in the material to teach you about integer linear programming in general. But that's not necessarily polynomial. It's fast, practically. It has a good chance. ILP, integer linear programming, has a better chance to be efficient than probably what we can do by checking all possible location of guards in the building. Or we can try a greedy approach that is very popular, that would say what? In a simple polygon, I have to decide where the first guard is going to be located. So in a simple polygon, maybe I'll place the first guard so it sees the maximum number of vertices. Easy to count. I can always see if a point sees a vertex, each specific vertex or not. That doesn't give me great bound. Maybe I want to see instead place the first guard so the area that it sees is maximum, or the additional information that it appears. So the reducing of the entropy, reducing uncertainty, has the strongest effect from the first guard. Let's just say, for simplicity, I have my polygon or terrain or building or something in 3D or 4D, and for every location G, I ask what's this placement of G, what is the total area that G sees, not a good drawing, and after all the location, I'll place G in a place, the first guard will be in the location where it sees the maximum area, or the maximum, whichever other item you're measuring. It's number of vertices. That will be the first guard. where should I place a second guard? It should be placed so it maximizes the area of, what's written in here? V's of G2 minus V's of G1. Somebody can translate to English.
Set difference.
Set difference between, but why, well,
It'd be basically maximizing the amount that the second guard sees and the first guard isn't already seeing.
I want to maximize what is a new area that the second guard sees. Right? My first guard in this example doesn't see into this nuke, this different piece of this polygon. This guard, G1, does not see anything here. So out of the area that is not covered yet, try to place a second guard so it maximizes the maximum of the area not seen by the first one. And the third one would be at a placement where it maximizes the area not seen by neither the first nor the second one. And so on. So that's greedy algorithm. That's very popular approach to other set cover problems. You have items and you have sets of items, like what can I see by a single guard from this point, and I want essentially to cover all the items, cover the whole polygon. It doesn't give great bounds. It will give bounds that would say, it will tell you what the optimum number of guards times log n is the number of vertices, and n can be huge, so even though it's just log, it can be, and if it's terrain, you're placing location in terrain, the cameras on terrain in 3D, it could be enormous, and it's not exactly how to bound it. So there, it's not, so if I'm insisting on seeing the whole polygon, it's not a fantastic algorithm. There are better algorithms that gives better approximation, like better approximation would be optimum times log, but log only of the optimum. So that's better, and it's also much faster than the greedy approach. On the other hand, the greedy approach is still very popular and still very practical because it works very nicely. What did I say? It doesn't work well if I insist on seeing the whole polygon. But whether do I need to see every nuke and crevice and underneath every table in the whole building? A much more reasonable solution is that I have a budget of, that's as many cameras that I'm willing to put in the whole building. No more than 17 cameras. Place is 17 cameras so that the total area that you see is as large as possible. That is, K is fixed, and now you're trading the area that you see. I mean, possibly K is large enough so you see everything, but if you cannot see the whole polygon, then try to see as much as possible.
The greedy algorithm doesn't, it seems like it doesn't always yield the least number of guards, right? It depends on what the pattern of each
Well,
disability.
it can be up to, if let's say in the case that everything is discrete, so it's not area, but I am just trying to measure the quality of a guard based on how many vertices it sees.
Correct.
Then my solution could be as bad as, where did it go? K log n guard. It could be log n more than the optimum. If I run ILP or one whatever other algorithm that guarantees optimality, I'll end up with k-opt. Instead, I'm ending up with something that can be, in practice it works very well, but it could be as bad as k-opt times log n is the number of vertices, and I don't even have meaningful bound in the case of area that I'm trying to maximize. But after bad mouthing the greedy, if I insist on seeing everything, it's actually very practical, because if you want to say, I'll keep adding guard until I don't see much improvement, greedy is probably not a bad way. And actually, there is a famous bound that says that what you see with the area of greedy, so area of greedy versus the area of opt. which one is larger? With the same number of cameras, case given, no more than 17 cameras. Which one is larger? Of course, greedy will not do better than opt. They both have the same number of cameras, but opt has the wisdom to do everything good. But on the other hand, the area of greedy from the other side is larger or equal than the area of opt. The same thing that you have right here, times 1 minus 1 over E. That's a famous bound that you see in many cases, and that's about 70%. Makes sense? This 1 over 1 over E. If you take 545 with me, you'll see the proof of it. It's not complicated, but 1 over 1 minus E, and this number is about 0.64 something. So you're seeing at least a good chunk of what you would have seen had you had the wisdom to do everything. Okay, and we are down to our next topic. Just need to pay a moment to the OBS. And the OBS is definitely not happy. And just to summarize what we studied about the art gallery problem. So in the case of the art gallery problem, what did we study? We talked about polygons, simple polygons. We talked about triangulation of a simple polygon. We proved that there is always a triangulation. We mentioned something about the number of triangles and chords in the triangulation. So that no matter what the triangulation, by the way, you'll always end up with the same number of triangles. And then we discussed further, introduced art gallery problems in a simple polygon, talked about the three coloring theorems, that you can color the vertices by 3 colors so that every fit is different and so on. And then we used it to get bounds for the minimum guarding set, showing that it's n over 3. It was, I think, very nice theorem because there is a lot of pieces that kind of fit very nicely together. And then I gave you a 5 minutes intro to where's the research about sensor placement, what's other buzzwords you need to know, not to solve out, not to necessarily to know how to place antennas in the exact times, but at least you have a few buzzwords to start searching for it. And you'll find papers about it in the network computation. You'll find it in, actually, I saw an interesting paper about use the camera that is installed on your car to send pictures of road hazards to drivers that are behind you, and now you want to pick from various images, various videos, how to place coherent images for drivers that will arrive to the area a few seconds after you. Let's get another art gallery. Okay, we are back to a Voronoi diagram for a bit, and then we'll talk about triangulation. So yeah, Voronoi diagram, remember edges, vertices. I have hospitals. Every hospital defines the cell of all the points that are closest to this hospital. I have n such faces if I have n hospitals, and you know that vertices lies on equidistance for 2, 3 points surrounding them, and that every such vertex, I ask you in the homework, every such vertex is the center of an empty disk, because it means that there are 3 vertices that are that distance away from it, and no other vertex, no other hospital is inside this disk. Think why? And we mentioned that we can build one cell of the Voronoi diagram per one hospital by just taking intersection of half planes and such half planes, namely the bisector of this hospital and every other hospital takes their intersection. And I didn't give you an exact algorithm for it, it was kind of n cube. And the reason is that we'll see how this problem pops up in the context of linear programming, and then you'll see how to solve it in n log n, just to compute intersection of half spaces. You'll actually see in the course 4 algorithms for intersection of half spaces, all runs in n log n. Okay, so that means that the intersection can be computed, but the byproduct is that every cell is convex. And if it's convex, it's also connected. That is, I don't have cells that don't have hospitals inside them, which implies that, enough, here is a cell, it's convex, and yeah, and possibly it's unbounded. As we'll see, algorithms that compute the Voronoi diagram, by the way, these unbounded faces might be annoying because there is not natural vertex that signifies the endpoint of an edge. If an edge is, if a face is unbounded, then what is a vertex at the end of this ray that goes to infinity? So there is nothing wrong with it. Cognitively, it makes okay, we can handle the idea of rays, but if you want algorithms that know that treats all the edges in the same way and you don't want to separate different cases, what usually algorithms for computing Voronoi diagram does are the following. So these are my data points, P1 all the way to P2. These are my hospital all the way to PM. And what the algorithm decides before doing anything is to add 3 points P minus 3, P minus 2, and P minus 1. Actually, P minus 1, let me rephrase it, P minus 1. 3 points far, far away from the data. Again, here are all the data points, and now I'm going far, far away to the left at one artificial point. It's not a data point, it's a point that the algorithm threw. And the same goes for P minus 2 and P minus 3, far, far away from the rest. And now I compute my Voronoi diagram, but if you think about it, the only unbounded cells that you have will only be, if these points are really far away, are only of these 3 ones that I don't care for because they are not part of the data. And every cell that defined by legit points is a normal cell. Every edge has 2 vertices at the locations that you can find. So it's just a trick that makes the calculation simpler. It means that you have to handle fewer special cases in your code. Okay. More without this trick, who lies on the unbounded faces? Surprise, surprise, it's the vertices of the Voronoi diagram, of the convex hull, sorry. I let you prove half of it. It's, the other part is slightly more complicated. Voronoi diagram is, normally it's connected. Only case that it's not connected was if all my points are collinear. Something is wrong with my slide. Here, okay, vertex is the center of an empty disk. Euler formula tells you that the number of vertices, number of segments is, because the number of cells is n, then the number of the number of vertices is 2n. We talked about it on Tuesday because of Euler. It's planar graph. Number of vertices is 2n. Number of edges is about 3n. Okay. And yeah, a vertex is the cell of, maybe we don't want to do it, is a cell, is the center of an empty disk. And another empty disk. There are a lot of empty disks that have only 2 points on their boundary, only 2 hospitals on their boundary. Like here I pick a point on the edge that is the center of an empty circuit. That is, every point on an edge of the Voronoi diagram is the center of an empty circuit that have 2 sites on its boundary. Which means, and we'll use it, that if I see such a circle, then I can push this point a bit, and this circle will shrink as I'm moving this point until I'll exactly touch 3 vertices. That would be important. But it might be that it was a bunch of GIFs that I placed maybe ago. I want to remove them. Okay, and you can construct the Voronoi diagram directly. Voronoi diagram, by the way, will be really, really important in shape analysis. We'll see how I can remove a lot of noise and get compressed representation of shape using skeletons that you might have heard about, and median of shapes, all related to Voronoi diagram. So lots of things coming up. Let's talk about the Lanois triangulation. So I have a set of points, no more polygon. And I'm connecting all the points by chords, as many chords as you can. Still, chords cannot cross each other. Every chord must connect to the input points that I have. And just keep adding chords until you cannot add anymore. And of course, don't add 2 chords between the same pair of vertices. And I want to ask you how many triangles do I have in this shape. So first, hopefully everybody agrees that what you're getting is a triangulation. Every shape, like every triangle here, every face that I'll get is a triangle. If it's quadrilateral, you still have room to add 1 more chord. It's not the maximal.
N-2.
Now I want to tell you something about the number of triangles in this set. And the answer might be n-1, but not necessarily. The answer depending on age, number of vertices on convex height. And we want to do the following trick. So again, my goal is just to know how many triangles do I have in the whole set. You see, if all my points are on the convex hull, then you know the answer is n-3. But if there are points in the convex hull, then let's see a pretty cool proof that tries to ask how many triangles do I have. So I have n points altogether, for which each of them are vertices of the convex hull. And I triangulated the whole thing somehow. One of the possible triangulation. And now what I want to do is to So what I really want to know is how many triangles I have, but I'll go ask a different question. I'll ask what is the sum of all the angles inside all the triangles? Here is one angle, alpha 1, alpha 2, alpha 3, alpha 4, alpha 5, alpha 6, alpha 7. Plus, I need to add here beta 1 and beta 2, beta 3, beta 4. So how can I compute this sum of angles in all triangles? So I'm going to do it in two ways. I'm going to assume that I have assumed T triangles. So the answer would be T times 180. That would be one way to calculate it. But there is another way. Number of points, it's not vertices, it's points, number of points which are not on the convex hull. If I have n points, and each of them are on the convex hull, then number of points which are not on the convex hull is n minus h. But every point is either interior to the convex hull or it's a vertex of the convex hull. And we said on the convex hull there are h of them, so it's n minus h. Here is one such point. It's inside the convex hull. What is the contribution of all the angles that touch this point, the non-vertex ones? 360. You're summing up all the angles around it. So it would be n minus h times 360. That was for the external ones. And now I just wanted to take a clean image. If I have an edge gone, and I sum up these angles, 4 gone in this case, the sum of the inner angles is, help?
N minus 2 times 180.
The number of angles, if I have edge, guys, it's like, now I'm looking just at, but, so now I'm only I'm counting separately the vertices that are on the convex hull. The contribution from vertices that are on the convex hull. Here is 1, here is 2, here is 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So h here is 7. So such a vertex might contribute 1 angle, 2 angles, 3 angles, I don't know. Maybe 3 angles, but the sum up of all the angles that lies on one of these vertices would be
H minus 2 times 180.
the edge such vertices minus 2 times 180 which in turns equal to t times 180. But where did I get to the t times 180? Because that assumes that I have t triangles, and each one contributed 180 degrees. Just counting all these angles in two different ways. So, but the sum of all angles shouldn't change in these two different ways. So now divide everything by 180, and you have an expression to what is, how many triangles you have. Needs to be written. So I have divide everything by 180. So you have n minus h times 2 plus h minus 2. That equals t. And you can rearrange it a bit. So all the triangulations have the same name. I think that's it. I might be just. Hopefully, that's a correct number. But at least everybody agrees with the method. Everybody saw what I did. I pretended that I don't care about the number of triangles. I just calculate all the summation of all the angles and sum up the angle in a different way. And now we suddenly remember that these two numbers must be equal to each other. So I have a set of points. How do I triangulate them? I'll end up with the same number of triangles. But about the quality of triangulation, I can have very, very different results. And if I want to do things with this triangulation, like send it to 3D printing because that's the skin of the surface of a shape that I'm creating, send it to render it, or do numerical analysis. You want to do, assume that it's a part of an engine, you want to it's metallic, you're placing some heat from one side, and this heat diffuse from one triangle to another, and you want to build a nice profile on the heat on every triangle. So there are definitely good linear triangulation and bad triangulation. And here is something that, and by the way, the rule of thumb will be, we like fat triangles. Triangles. We want in every triangle that we'll create, we look at all three angles, and if this one of these edges is very small, we don't like this triangle. It's a very thin triangle, and it means that for many applications, it's very bad. It's bad numerically. It's bad if you're doing numerical analysis, because if you put some heat on this side and you want to ask how does this heat diffuse over these points that are far, far away, we think about it as a very bad idea. On the other hand, triangles that is 60, 60, 60, that's great, which is too good to be true. Also 90, 45, 45 would be good, too good to be true without adding Steiner points, some extra data, but we'll talk about it. But where we are going is to say that Delanoy triangulation is almost always a very good triangulation. At least without start to adding extra points, it will do very well. But I need to tell you more. So let's talk about linear interpolation inside a polygon. So assume that every vertex is a point on the terrain. The triangulated terrain, I was flying above the terrain, measure the point elevation-wise above the sea level, and so then I massaged it a bit, and now I have points that I can send into. I'm trying not to say, kids or dogs, like they're both very cute, but it's a question of, it's not original. You want a puppy or a kid? It destroys the carpet or destroys the life? Which one? I wish it would be original. So, I have elevation height of every such vertex above the sea level, and I want to create a terrain that looks like a mountain out of this sea level, which means that I'm going to do a linear interpolation of this elevation. And that's what your GPU are optimized to do, to have such interpolation between three vertices and do it for many pixels very fast. But that requires a bit more idea. How do I decide about what is the height or the elevation or something on each point in the triangle? And that's where we are using barycentric coordinates. So it's a good, I don't need it for the Delanoy triangulation, it's universal of how do I use any triangulation tool. So I have three attributes of the three vertices. For example, the attributes would be how much contribution do I have from the green, how much contribution do I have from the red, how much contribution do I have from the blue, and that amount of contribution should affect the color of the RGB color of a point inside the triangle. And what makes sense is that if a point inside the triangle is very close to the red, then it should be very close to the red, and or very close to the blue, or very close to the green. Your color should change in a reasonable way. Barycentric coordinates will tell you the following. That's how you want to compute weights that will assign the weight of the first vertex. The weight alpha 2 is a weight, the weight of vertex 2. Alpha 3 is the weight of vertex 3. That will take you here I wanted to do it two-dimensional, so I'm using colors, but if I can replace the colors by elevation above sea level, and then I expect my triangle to just be a plain triangle. So here are the weights, but how do I determine these weights? Barycentric coordinates tells you the following. Calculate first the area of this whole triangle. Calculate the area of this whole triangle. Now, you want to ask what are the weights for a point P inside the triangle. Do the following. From P, shoot diagonals to the three vertices, and now you created three new smaller triangles. One triangle A1, notice the indices. A1 is a triangle out of the three that doesn't touch V1. Here is V2. A2 is a triangle that doesn't touch V2. And the same for V3. Now, finally, I can tell you what is this weights. So the weight of a point I, the importance of point I would be, look at the area of the triangle I divided by the area of the big triangle. It is the sum of areas of the three small. It looks a bit counterintuitive, but I'm saying the larger A2 is, that doesn't have the vertex 2, the larger the contribution of V2. But that actually makes sense, because how can I make this area larger and move P closer to V2, implying that the area of A2 is almost the whole thing, so that's almost 1, while the area of A3 and A1 are almost 3 verts, so they have very little contribution. So I'm almost in the color or elevation of V2. Okay, makes sense? And by the way, if P is just on the chord between V1 and V2, if P is on the chord, then what is the area of A2? 0, which makes sense, because then V2 has absolutely no contribution. The contribution will just be given by these two vertices, and how would it be split? It's just linear interpolation in between. Thank you. See you Tuesday.
I just want to make sure the homework you want to add to it, so like do you think it's better just be hosting like a one PDF?
Yeah, you have to have just one PDF.
Got it. Yeah, because I used to use like a OneNote, and it prints out somehow it can print out like a JPG.
One PDF, everything that has real text in it should be printed. What you don't need to print is you have just formula or a few words here and there. 30 seconds to see what is moving to next one. Yeah. Very well.
Oh, do the length of
Yeah. Oh, sure. Right. I'm done. I can pick it. Where are you? Oh, okay. See? So I'll see you at home.
Class is really difficult. I feel like if we get like a group together to like kind of go over shit,
Yeah, it helps a lot.
it would definitely help.
So,
This is definitely harder than the first
should I come with you?
Yeah, for
You're a student or undergrad?
I'm
I'm undergrad.
Okay, tell her that if she wants to pick me and just let me know. Bye. Got this flat somewhere in stop us.
So this link here, it goes to this. Is this showing like each of these points one of the students on the map then?
I think that yeah, it's
Okay.
In this case, it's a student on the map.
Okay, thank you. And where can I find the recordings from class?
So I think that Zoom also works, but mostly OBS, Twitch.